All right, let's dive right in, shall we? We're going deep on the XL bully ban in the UK.
Uh-huh.
It's been a year since it was put in place, after all those attacks.
Right.
And we're going way beyond the headlines,
Okay.
using data and firsthand accounts to see what's really happening.
Interesting.
And trust me, some of this stuff is pretty shocking, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing
Yes.
is that this ban, even with good intentions,
Right.
it's kind of created this ripple effect with consequences that no one really saw coming.
Totally. Yeah, it's like this chain reaction almost.
Yeah.
But before we get into all of that,
Sure.
let's rewind a bit.
Okay.
Back to before the ban.
Before
It was a scary time,
Yeah.
with those awful attacks, some
Mhm.
even fatal, just dominating the news.
it was a lot.
And you could just feel the public's concern.
Right.
It was just mounting.
Absolutely.
And that's really what pushed the government to act, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Those incidents, as tragic as they were,
Yeah.
they really brought this whole issue of public safety right to the forefront.
Right to the forefront, yeah.
And the question became, what measures?
Yeah,
What measures are actually necessary to protect people?
exactly.
And then the ban was the answer.
So let's break it down. Like, how does this ban actually work?
Go.
It's actually pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
5 specific breeds are banned: XL Bully, Pit Bull Terrier, Japanese Tosa,
Right.
Dogo Argentino, and Fila Brasileiro.
Okay.
Now, if you already owned one of these dogs before the ban,
Right.
you could keep it,
Okay.
but there are some pretty strict conditions, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to get them neutered, muzzle them when you're out in public,
Yeah.
and make sure they're in a really secure environment.
And keep them contained.
And there are serious penalties if you don't follow those rules.
Of course, yeah, the thinking behind the ban was to try to reduce
Reduce the number.
number of these dogs in circulation and hopefully, reduce the risk of future attacks.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
So initially, the government estimated that there were about 10,000 XL bullies
10,000.
in England and Wales.
Right.
But get this, the number of registered XL bullies is now over 57,000.
Wow, that's a big jump.
That's more than 5 times what they initially thought.
Wow.
That's a huge difference. What could account for that?
Well, it makes you wonder, right?
Yeah.
One possibility is that, a lot of owners just weren't aware
Yeah.
of the breed specifics, maybe,
Oh, yeah.
or didn't realize their dogs fell under the ban.
I don't even know. Yeah.
But there's another possibility, a more concerning one.
What's that?
Maybe illegal breeding and selling is continuing despite the ban. That could be contributing to these inflated numbers, I think.
And all these dogs, where are they going? I mean, this is having a huge impact on shelters, right?
Absolutely. We're seeing a real strain on shelters, yeah.
Yeah.
A Freedom of Information request showed this staggering increase in suspected banned dogs being seized.
Really?
Almost 2,000 in just the first 8 months of this year.
Wow.
To put that in perspective, only 283 were seized in all of 2023.
That's a huge jump.
Yeah, huge.
And what happens to these dogs once they're seized?
Well, unfortunately, a significant number are euthanized.
Oh, wow.
Over 800 have already been put down this year,
It's awful.
which is more than double the number from last year.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking,
Yeah.
and it raises some serious questions about how we balance public safety with humane treatment of these animals.
It's a tough situation all around.
Yeah.
Shelters are already stretched so thin.
Right.
And now they're facing this massive influx of dogs.
Yeah.
And speaking of feeling the pressure, it's not just shelters, right?
No.
The police are dealing with a whole new set of challenges because of this ban.
Absolutely. This ban has put a huge strain on law enforcement.
Yeah.
Think about it. They're the ones on the front lines enforcing this.
They are.
They're responsible for identifying these dogs,
Yeah.
seizing them,
Yeah.
and then figuring out what to do with them.
Right. Plus they have to deal with all the logistics, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like finding places to kennel all these dogs.
Exactly.
The cost alone has skyrocketed
Yeah.
from $4 million to $25 million a year.
It's a lot.
I can't even imagine what it's like for these officers trying to manage all this on top of their regular duties.
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle, right?
It is.
A lot of kennels are overflowing.
Yeah.
And then you have to factor in the added costs of training officers,
Right.
getting the right equipment, for handling these dogs.
Right.
And then the logistics of transporting them, caring for them, it's a real logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
And it's not just the financial burden.
Right.
We also have to consider the impact this is having on other policing priorities.
Right. Yeah.
With resources being diverted to enforce the XL bully ban.
Yeah.
It's raising concerns about whether other areas of law enforcement might be getting less attention.
Yeah, it's a complex balancing act for sure.
Absolutely.
And all this talk about numbers and logistics, it can feel a bit abstract. But it's important to remember that there are real people being affected by this ban.
Oh, absolutely.
On all sides.
Yeah, and that's why hearing firsthand accounts is so crucial.
I agree.
These stories really put a human face on the data and remind us of the very real consequences involved.
Exactly. And one story that really stuck with me was Lisa Willis's experience.
Lisa Willis.
She was attacked by an XL bully type dog.
I remember that.
Just a few months after the ban came into effect. It was completely unprovoked.
Oh, okay.
She was out walking her terrier when when a French bulldog attacked it.
Oh no.
And then moments later, this XL bully type dog just came out of nowhere.
Really?
Crossed the road and went straight for Lisa.
Oh my gosh.
It's a chilling reminder that even with the ban in place, these types of incidents are still happening.
That's scary, yeah.
Lisa described it as being like something out of a horror movie.
Oh, wow.
She said the dog was so powerful that she couldn't get it off of her, and her arm was just shredded.
Oh, no.
She honestly thought she was going to die.
It's hard to imagine the terror she must have felt.
I know. It sends chills down my spine just thinking about it.
Right.
It was only because some people nearby heard her screaming and came to help that she survived.
Wow.
And the thing is, Lisa said that the owner actually replaced the dog within weeks.
Really? That's really troubling.
Yeah.
It raises concerns about loopholes in the ban.
Yeah.
And the effectiveness of enforcement.
Right.
Even with restrictions in place. If there are ways to circumvent them.
Yeah.
It undermines the whole point of the ban.
It really does. It makes you question whether focusing solely on breed is the most effective approach. I mean, shouldn't responsible ownership be a bigger part of the conversation?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lisa's story really highlights the need to consider all angles of this issue.
It does.
If someone is determined to own a certain type of dog, regardless of the ban, they'll find ways to do it.
They will.
And that's where the focus on responsible ownership becomes crucial.
Okay, so where does all this leave us? Is the ban actually working?
Good question.
We've got these rising shelter numbers, strained resources, stories like Lisa's that are incredibly concerning. But are we seeing a decrease in attacks overall?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? It's really too early to say for sure.
Yeah.
While some police forces are reporting a decrease in dog attacks, 22 out of 25 surveyed are actually on track to see an increase in incidents this year.
Oh, wow.
So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, it sounds like we're dealing with a very complex situation here.
Very cool.
And it makes you realize there's no easy answer. We've got these logistical challenges, the ethical considerations with shelters and euthanasia, and then the question of whether the ban is even effective in reducing attacks.
And we haven't even touched on the issue of breed identification.
That's right.
XL bully isn't actually a recognized breed. So how do you even go about defining what an XL bully is? Right.
That's a great point.
It seems like it would be pretty difficult to enforce a ban.
Yeah.
When there's no clear definition of what you're actually banning.
Exactly. So you've got police officers making judgment calls in the field.
Right.
Which leaves a lot of room for interpretation, potential misidentification, and even bias.
Of course.
It's a messy situation.
It is.
It sounds like, what we're seeing with this XL bully ban is a situation where the reality on the ground is a lot more complicated than maybe what was initially envisioned.
Yeah, it definitely highlights the challenges of trying to address a complex problem with a single policy solution.
Right.
There are so many factors at play.
Right.
Breed identification, enforcement, responsible ownership.
Yeah.
And it seems like the ban has just brought some of those challenges right to the forefront.
Yeah, it's like, you pull on one thread
and
realize it's connected to this whole tangled web.
Totally.
But let's try to untangle this a little bit.
Right.
We've covered a lot of ground today. The shocking increase in registered XL bullies.
Yeah.
The strain on shelters and police resources, the ethical questions around euthanasia.
Absolutely.
And of course, the ongoing debate about whether this ban is actually making people safer.
And the reality is, a year in,
we're
still grappling with those questions.
Yeah.
There's no easy answer.
Right.
And it's likely that this conversation will just continue to evolve as more data becomes available.
Exactly. And that's where you come in.
Okay.
Dear listener.
Yeah.
We want to hear from you.
Tell us.
We've presented a lot of information, different perspectives, but now we want to know, what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Knowing what we've learned today, what do you think is the best way to balance public safety with responsible dog ownership?
Right. Is breed-specific legislation the answer?
Yeah.
Or are there other solutions we should be exploring?
Right.
There are no right or wrong answers here.
Yeah, right.
What matters is that we continue to engage in this conversation.
I believe.
To think critically about the issue.
Absolutely.
And to consider the various viewpoints involved.
We've only just scratched the surface of this complex issue.
Yeah.
There's so much more to learn and so many different perspectives to consider.
Right.
We encourage you to continue researching, asking questions, and forming your own informed opinions.
It's important.
Thanks for joining us.